Say you're the best at making money, and money rules the world. You feel.
Hello and welcome to my 2022 June bullet journal setup. As many of you know, my overall theme for this year is fairy tales, so I decided to go with the story Snow White since June always reminds me of fruits and flowers and sunshine. So to start off, I'm just going to sketch out a circle in the middle of the page, and this is going to be sort of a wreath of branches, birds, and ruby berries, so I made sure it was big enough to cover majority of the page. And then here I'm beginning by creating some interlaced branches, and I'm just sandwiching most of them toward the left side, with the haven of branch limbs growing thinner as it moves toward the right. Upon the bough, I sketched out a small bird, followed by slender, papery branches laden with tiny cherry red berries. I also decided to add some pale leaves just to balance out the colors and bring in an element of seasonal warmth. This upper corner will be left empty since I will be cutting it out soon in order to add some details on the page below. Anyway, I'm just coloring in all of the tree branches with this shade of light brown, and then I'm going over some of the edges with a darker brown to create some depth and realism. Then I just colored in the clusters of berries with some red, and I tried to make sure it was dark enough to look ripe and sweet. Finally, I just colored in the bird with varying shades of brown and tried to add some highlights on the wings and tail just to make it look a little less flat. And once that was done, I just cut everything out so that the page below can be seen. Here, I'm sketching out a similar arrangement of leaves, branches, and birds, but this is going to be mostly centered around the upper right corner. So here I'm just creating all of the laced branches and coloring them in brown. And one tip that I have is to start with a much lighter color and then build on top of that with darker browns and blacks, especially toward the edges or curves. Now I'm just filling in the leaves using the same method of layering darker greens on top of pale colors, and then I'm also just shading the berries. Then I'm coloring in the bird as well, and my goal for this page was to kind of make it look like the forest with all of its animals and abstruse tails. Anyway, now that the second page is done, I will be cutting this part out as well so that we can work on the final page. Here, I'm just going to add a myriad of twisting branches, fruits, and leaves in all of the empty spaces just to make the whole scene a bit more dynamic and full. Now, I'm just filling in all of the little sketches with some color, bestowing the branches with shades of rich brown, the leaves with soft green, and berries with vivid red. I'm also just going back to see where the page seems rather empty and then either adding some additional leaves or fruits to fill up the space. Finally, moving over to the page on the left, I'm just writing June 2022, and on the bottom I'm writing the quote, "When raindrops come tumbling, remember you're the one who can fill the world with sunshine." Underneath that, I'm just sketching out some small apples, and then I'm coloring it in with different shades of orange, yellow, red, brown, and beige. As for the leaves, I just filled it in with some pale green and some darker shades of brown and black. Flipping over to the next page, this is going to be my June calendar spread, so I just created all of the lines and the grids for each day of the month. And then here on the right side, I'm just lightly sketching out this big cluster of apples and small leaves since I think it works very well with this month's theme. For the colors, I started off with this light butter yellow and then began layering it with shades of honey, some beige, and some marigold. Then I just went in with some red and began shading the corners and the areas where there would be more shadows, such as near a cluster of leaves or when they're pressed up against each other. Right now, I'm continuing to layer some red, and I'm just making it a bit darker now, as well as trying to blend it in smoothly. Lastly, I just quickly colored in all of the leaves, and I used a sort of peach color to fill in the calendar dates and the month bar. Moving on to the next page, this is going to be my gratitude and monthly book check-in spread. I've done this for the past 2 months, I think, and I've really enjoyed using it so far, so I decided to continue using this again for June. And I've opted to stop creating mood and habit trackers just because personally I find that I don't really use them that often, and it doesn't really help me stay more organized or be more productive. Anyway, for this spread, I decided to go back to my roots and draw some more flowers. See what I did there? Roots. Anyway, basically, I've just sketched out various flowers, lilacs and heather and sage and cattails, and since I was really rushing to get this done, this page is pretty simple, but I do like the colors and I think it looks very summery and bright. Now, once all the flowers are colored, I'm just outlining both sides with this gold pen, and I'm writing books on the left page and then gratitude on the right side. Lastly, flipping over to my weekly spreads, I'm just beginning by drawing some leaves and thin branches clustered in the top right corner, and then I'm adding some round berries and small flowers before coloring it in. For my weeklies, I've been creating this sort of mini booklet so that each week is all grouped together because I find it much more convenient to have it all in one place. And basically what I do is just create these Dutch doors, and I usually draw something on it before cutting it out just so that it has a visual aspect to it. After coloring everything in, I'm just cutting the Dutch door out so that I can start working on the page below. For this page, I just created a similar illustration, except it occupied a bit more space toward the bottom so that from the first page it will look like everything is layered. Here, I'm also just coloring everything in and then cutting it out. The last Dutch door will also be created using the same process, so I'm just drawing this long branch that extends from the top left corner to the bottom right corner in the empty space where the illustration from the last page left off. I'm just filling in all of the leaves and berries before also cutting this page out as well. As for the days of the week, I just went with some quick lettering, and on the final page, I turned it into a notes/to-do list spread. Then I went back and wrote down all of the dates below each weekday and then colored them in red to add some richness and warmth. I also added this red row after every line on the notes/to-do list page in order to match the color of the berries and make the spread more vibrant. Here is the final flip through. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day.